About 300 resumes. 300 resumes, I'll get 9 responses to 12 responses. So that's fairly abysmal. We don't want you to do that. If I engineer my resume each time and I change it, I change the words, I change things that I have on there based upon the needs of the company, I can get up to about 12 to 15% of a return, which again, 36 to 45 if I'm using the 300 number. And this is numbers that are provided to me by the Department of Labor and Statistics. Yes, sir.
What do you mean by like changing your resume depending on?
Okay, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll get into more detail. But a good question. I actually have a few examples further on, so I'll talk about it. There's another statistic here, and this is the Department of Labor and Statistics say, if I network with people, it's a 60 to 80% yield. This is something that I wish I knew when I was your age. That if I went out and talked to people, if I networked with them, and I'm going to share with you, it's not the creepy kind of networking, you know, like, hey, can you get me the job, and you know, that type of thing. I don't want you to be, you're likely not that person. There's a few people out there that are like that, but my guess is none of you are that person. So, but if I get you having normal conversations, and I'll explain how to do this, this will be a 60 to 80%. This will come up again. Yes?
What was the 12 through 15?
That's if you customize your resume for each one of the companies that you apply to. And I'll show you how that's done. So I get into this because, and this is something else I wish I knew when I was your age, that no matter what I'm going out to do, that God has His hand in it, right? I believe with all my heart that we live on this tiny little planet, right? Planet Earth, in which billions of people have lived, right? And out of all the people in the history of the universe, which is ever expanding, you're the only person like you, ever, in the history of the universe. And I think that it's an act of worship for you guys to really try to figure out what is it that God has called me to do? And to know that He has His hand in it. And I'll show you some other things along the way that I really think that He's going to put people in your path. He's going to put positions in your path. He wants you to accomplish things. And for some of us, it might be a little bit rougher than others. I know it was rough on me, it seemed like, when I was going through it. Now that I'm 58 and I'm looking back, I say, God took care of me every step of the way, and I can see why He put me through that situation. But I want you to know that as you're going through this whole thing, that God is with you. So, what is it that you guys want to do? Because if I go back to that original diagram, there's a future mission, there's future values, and I know I talked to a couple of you that kind of know exactly what you want to do, right? But how many of you are like me? Seriously, I'm 58 years old, and if Bethel decided that they no longer needed my services today, for, you know, a little severance for you, it's time for you to hit the road, I'd be crestfallen because I really love it here, but there'd be a big part of me that would be really excited because I don't know what I would do next. But I'm really excited about that because there's a lot of different opportunities. So how many of you are kind of in that boat where you say, I don't know exactly what I want to do, and that's okay? Yeah, there's a few. Okay. So, and for some of us, I really don't know what it is at all. So some of us, you have a little bit of an inkling, right? Who has the inkling of what you want to do? Okay, thank you. And who's definite? Okay. This is, so I want you to start thinking about what are your interests, skills, and values that you are going to apply to those future positions, if you know what you want to do, and even if you have an inkling. And also, what kind of company, what kind of values will a company have that I want to work with? Or what kind of graduate schools have the same values that I'm interested in, because it will make a difference. And Seth, jump in here anytime. And then you have to know what's available. So I might say, I would love to be a funeral director because I want a job where people are dying to see me, right? But if people aren't dying at the same rate as they used to be, I might have to say, is that even available anymore? You know, or I want to dig graves and more people are getting cremated, so is that a possibility? So there's this nice little helpful website that's called ONET. And have any of you heard of ONET? Okay, well, here's something about ONET. ONET is a site that's run by the government, and it works. Thank you very much. Okay, so here's ONET. I would love you guys to visit the site. There's a couple of things that you can do with this site. So, who said they were going to be occupational therapy or physical therapy or? Okay, I'll take that as a really confident expression of where you're going to go. So what you can do in the upper right-hand corner of ONET, and I'll make this a little bit bigger, you can actually type in the title, occupational therapist. And do a search, and I get a number of positions that start to pop up. You can do this with all sorts of different positions. Now, first thing I want you to note is this is based on a lot of research that's done throughout the nation. And you'll see certain jobs that have the title, occupational therapist, occupational therapy assistants, physical therapist aides, and on and so forth. And you'll note that some jobs have the sunshine by them, and that means it's in a growing area. Again, grave digger, if you saw that position, it wouldn't have a sunshine by it. Not because it's a depressing job, right? But because there's just not a lot of demand for grave diggers these days. But you can look at the position, and then here's what's really cool. You can look at the job description. And this might not surprise you, but as an occupational therapist, like my daughter does, she assesses, she plans, she organizes, participate in rehabilitative programs to build restoration. Right? So she works on that. And there's things as an occupational therapist she's doing. She's completing and maintaining records. She's testing and evaluating physical and mental abilities. She's training. She's evaluating. And this should be a key to you, right? Back to the illustration. This is kind of my job description. And I say, oh, have I ever had the opportunity to evaluate things? Have I ever had an opportunity to plan and organize? Because if I haven't, I have an opportunity to seek those things out. So later on when I'm being interviewed to be an occupational therapist, and they ask me the question, tell me about a time that you planned and organized, because these are likely questions to come up. Right? I can be proactive, and I can take steps to get there. Does that make sense? Now, what's really important is you can read a myriad of information, tools that I use, technology, knowledge that I need, skills that I need, abilities. And here's another area that you can kind of work on this. Abilities, problem sensitivity, deductive reasoning, oral comprehension. Again, I can work on these skills as I'm working towards that goal. Work activities, so many things I can look at. But at the bottom is the area that I care about the most, is I find out what are the median wages for that job. 78,000. Not bad, right? And then I see the projected growth. 2014 through 2024, it predicts it's going to be much higher than average. Is there a particular state that you want to work in?
Minnesota, hopefully.
Minnesota, okay. I generally work in the state of confusion, but we'll see Minnesota for you. I tell you, it's a tough crowd. You know? Okay, Minnesota. And what we're going to find out that in Minnesota, compared to the United States, Minnesota being in red, that they're not loving on us occupational therapists quite as much. It's not bad, right? But you can keep these things in mind as you're looking for positions. Now, I think you're going to do okay, right? But sometimes you might want to look to see, am I more dateable in one state than another, right? Because of the amount of money that I earn. So you can look at those things.
Do you know if that data is just straight income, or is it relative to like cost of living? Or is
I
it
think
just
it's
straight?
pretty much straight income.
Okay.
Yeah. Good question. So the question was that straight income, or was that information that considers cost of living and that type of thing? And I believe it's straight income. Here we find out in Minnesota that the movement for employment, this is how you look at this. Occupational therapists, they looked at about 2,300 in 2012. They expect that by 2022, they're going to need 2,680 occupational therapists. Given attrition and all that, they're looking at a 15% growth rate, which means they're probably going to have about 70 openings for occupational therapists per year between 2012 and 2024. And that's really helpful for you to know, right? Because you want to know you're going to get a job. I know for Alice and my daughter, you know, it was important for her to know that she was going to get a job once she got out of the program, because she was going a little bit into debt for that. Does that make sense? All right. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out on ONET, oh, by the way, it also gives me a little section of related occupations. So you might say occupational therapy would be great, but I wonder if I ever even thought about being a recreational therapist or a health specialist, teacher. So there's these areas of comparison. There's also another little exercise on ONET that allows you to do these types of things where you can say, I wonder if I should check out any potential jobs based upon my interests. Right? So you can go to advanced search and interests. And usually people are a little bit interested in this. Would you be interested to see what kind of jobs might pop up based upon your interests?
Yeah.
Okay. This is called the RISA code, or the John Howland code. And John Howland was a guy that was back in the 70s, and he worked off of a theory that was created by E.K. Strong. It's called the Strong Interest Theory. And Strong said people should pursue jobs in which they're interested. Kind of one of those duh theories, but we got to come up with these, right? I got a duh theory that I'll show you later on. But people should pursue jobs in which that will allow them to express their interests. Now, hang in with me here, but there's 6 different areas of interest that could pertain to you. And you might have only one area of interest, or you might have several. But here's how it works. People with a realistic bend, that one at the top, are people that like to work with their hands, they like to be outdoors, maybe athletics. It might be, I got a friend who drives a truck every day, and he wakes up giddy. He says, I love driving my truck. His truck is actually, he fixes his truck, and he, what do they call that? Pimp? What is it? Pimping your ride or whatever? Right, okay. He's in a truck of the month. I'm sorry, I'm revealing my naivety here. But he's a real strong realistic. Farmers would be a strong realistic, and so on and so forth. Investigative folks are my friends that when school year would end, they'd be a little bit crestfallen. Because they'd say, I don't know, I don't know what I'm going to be doing now. And Mr. 2.52 GPA said, hey, no, we're out of school, we get to have fun now, right? And I didn't understand this. But there's people that actually love to learn and always learning new concepts. That drives them, and that could be you. Artistic people, that's self-explanatory. They like to perform, they like to sing, maybe write, maybe act. It's all those types of things. And they like a lot of free form in what they do. Social people want to help people. I want to be with people, nurture them, teach them, help them out in any way possible. So you find a lot of nurses, teachers, physical therapists, medical people that are involved in that. Enterprising people are your politicians. I hate to say it, but I think Donald Trump is probably fairly high on the enterprising thing. He's a businessman. Let's think of a better example. The Apostle Paul. He made tents, right? He's driven to make tents. He's really, he sold the tents in the area that he was, Antioch, and he was really intense about the gospel, right? So, in fact, he was trying to imprison Christians, right? And then he was trying to create more Christians based upon what side of the name he was on, Paul and Saul, and when he met Jesus on the road. So he is a strong, enterprising person. And then conventional people, I think, are the dearest people in the world, because that's my daughter, Allison. She would come home from school on breaks and say, Mom and Dad, why don't you guys take a walk? I'm going to reorganize the spice drawers or the closets. She couldn't stand things to be out of order. Right? Now she's got a son, so everything's out of order. Right? But she was really driven, and I'd say, why do you want to do that for? She goes, don't make fun of me, Dad. I love doing this. So you might like the conventional thing